Brought to you by DIS, keeping companies connected with cloud-based solutions. Come on, City.
Conor, good to chat with you again. A disappointing night for your side on Tuesday. What was the most disappointing factor of it from your view?
I think it was the way we started the game. Obviously conceding so early, you're chasing the game, so that was the most disappointing part, that we was probably a little bit naive in early moments, and which led to us chasing a goal and then being set, they were set up on the counter, and it causes you problems when you are chasing a goal. So that was disappointing start.
Mark said that in a bid to try and be more expansive, particularly in those opening stages, that left gaps open in the defence. What were you trying to achieve with your game plan ahead of the early goal?
I think longer term, we felt that defensively we were at a level where we were having success, and our thoughts were, how are we going to become better as a team? Not only short term but long term. And by us asking different things from different people, we felt we would create more chances. And we probably did on the night than we've created in past weeks. So it's something that maybe didn't work on the night, but we're trying to develop as a team, and that's what we spoke about a lot.
Is that a case then of you wanting to be more offensive? You've always been a side that's been built on defensive resilience, particularly in the early stages of your charge. But is this you now trying to be more expansive, more attacking in the way that you set up?
I think it's balance. Obviously, from what you've seen, we were vulnerable. Not only, not all the time, but the counter attack. We looked like we had to defend big spaces, which does hurt you. So I think what we've got to do is keep improving with the ball in possession without affecting the out possession. So we've got to find different ways and identify these areas to improve.
How disciplined do you have to be with yourself when it maybe didn't quite go your way on Tuesday, that you're not to rip up the scrapbook, not to start again, but stick with what you know and stick to what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, obviously when you start the game so poor, it's really difficult, because it's quite kind of negative vibe from the start, where you go in excited to make things happen, and so early on you get that knock back, and it's like, we couldn't have started any worse, really. So but again, what we've got to do is make sure that we're as good as we can be, and these things happen, and I'm sure the experience from going through it with me and Mark will help the players understand of how we bounce back and what we do when we maybe conceded early on.
I know there's been a lot of talk about the formation and the outside noise, for the want of a better phrase, maybe asking as to why that formation hasn't changed. Do you buy into that at all? Do you see yourself playing in a different style, different system?
I think, we changed system on the night. We're quite flexible in terms of the midfield, of when we have one sitter or two sitters. You probably see it from watching the games, and we are quite different in the way that we play against certain formations. You'll see different things if you're looking at sort of the detail in and out of possession. So for us, we feel that we try different things within a formation, but there's a lot of fluidity and lots of different movements which put you into different shapes, etc. Anyway, I think over the long term we will start to learn more of what this team is, and I think it's okay having a philosophy, but you've got to fit it with the team and the players that you've got. So I think for us, we need to keep delving in and finding out new formations on the way, but it might just mean that we have more training time and contact time with the players to work on these things. The worst thing we can do is start changing formations. We're not able to work on it, and there's lots of frailties, and you're coming away from a team that's been on loads of runs and been performing well. So it's kind of it's catch-22 with that, and you've got to not make panic decisions. You've got to stick to what you believe in, and if changing formations later down the line because we feel it's right and we have a chance to work on it, then we're more than happy to do it if it's going to be the right decision.
Can you understand why fans maybe think that way, though, that they may want to see a change in formation and system? And the big one being two up top, Andy Cook and Danny Rowe playing alongside one another.
Yeah, I can understand it. They've got their opinions. They want to see loads of goals and etc. And you've got two players there who would potentially suit it in a 4-4-2. It's sometimes the pros and cons to anything. You're gonna have lots of cons of putting two players up there, and we've probably trialled it a little bit against Carlisle in the second half, and when it's not worked on, there's going to be problems, which we all saw. So I think that's the key. Time to develop, time to improve, and potentially time to change. But the fans, are fantastic. The supporters, and they've got to keep trying to encourage the players to be even better. And we need to just keep working hard.
Obviously, Colchester next for you. You're very well aware of the Windless run that you're on. Does that then come with some degree of pressure on yourselves that you need to get a result, indeed a win, to end this run?
Yeah, it's like anything, 5 games is not good enough and not what we want. We've been on the other end of the spectrum, and now we find ourselves at the bottom end, which we've got to just be clear in what we believe in and how we think, and what we think is going to get us out of this little rut that we have. And I think what we'll see is us potentially we've come away a little bit of our fight and desire, and that'll be said to the guys of first and foremost play for Bradford City. You're going out there, you're giving everything, you're aggressive, you're on the front foot, and in the in-possession stuff will come naturally because we've got good footballers. But first and foremost, who's going to work the hardest? If you work hard, you'll play, and that's as simple as it is.
How are those conversations taking place? How are they going? Anthony O'Connor's just spoken to us and said himself that the players discussed about not letting this season fizzle out.
Yeah, 100%. It's in football, it's quite strange. How do you want to finish the season? Do you want to be happy on a Tuesday, on a Saturday, or do you want to be miserable? And that's the choice that you have to make as individuals. We all want to be successful, but we want to make sure that everyone's willing to do everything that they can to perform and to put themselves under pressure to perform at the highest level. And it's not easy, so that's the skill.
How do you view Colchester as opponents? Yeah,
they're good. We've seen bits of them. Played a few different formations in the last couple of games. So a lot of the stuff we're prepping at the minute is to make sure we know as much as we can about what they're going to do on the night.
Team news wise, I know you were hopeful of Billy Clark on Tuesday. Is he closer? Is he a possibility now?
He's closer. He's been out on the grass today, so good signs. He's been on the grass all week, but it's just one of them things. Hopefully he is, and where we want him back, but I don't know whether it might be just a little bit too early. With in mind the next game after that.
How's Lee Novak getting on?
Good. He was on the grass today, so positive news. Obviously, a really good person and great for the guys around the building. So it was nice to see the smile that he had when he was on the pitch today.
With him being back on the grass, then does that afford you the opportunity to give yourself a timescale?
It'd be wrong to, just because I think you've seen from other players in the squad and what has happened potentially with setbacks, etc. So we don't want to comment too early, really.
And I think one of those would be fair to say in Reece Staunton. I mean, how is Reece as well?
Yeah, he's okay. Again, we're sort of looking at the specialist to see what's next for him.
I wanted to ask you about, if I may, Conor, Paudie O'Connor in particular, and just his discipline of late. I think I'm right in saying it's 6 yellow cards in his last 8 games, which takes him to 9 in total for the season. 1 more and he's got a 2-match suspension. Is that something that you've been monitoring? And indeed, have you had to have a chat with him about maybe just calming himself down somewhat? Yeah, we're obviously aware of the situation. We can see Paudie. He's very aggressive, he's very passionate, and the way he describes it is, and I can relate to this. If you want to be performing at your highest level, you have to feel that way. You have to have that real drive and that real bit between your teeth, really. And he plays like that all the time. He probably feels that he doesn't play his best games when he's maybe being asked to be a little bit more laid back, and it's maybe
lets the centre forward get on the ball a little bit too much. So it's the quality of trying to speak to him around his discipline, but also to understand that we don't want to take away the good parts of his game. But he's not getting booked on purpose. That's the truth.
I guess that's the task, isn't it? It's about how he channels that emotion. Yeah,
definitely. It's that controlled aggression is the most important bit. I think Pordy's, gonna do everything that he can to be as aggressive as he can, but to sort of be on the line. And I think a few of where we're asking the centre halves to be aggressive when the 9 goes deeper, and they get themselves in situations where potentially if they do get turned, you can be vulnerable. So sometimes, they make fouls, and that's the part of it. But again, Pordy's needs to sort of control it at times a little bit better. But we don't want to take that away from his game.
Do you think the role as captain has played a part in that at all? And then obviously the armband going back to Richards?
No, Pordy just gets on with it. He's a great character. He's not one for praise. He just, no, I don't need that. I'm just playing. That's all I need. Just play a game. So he's not been affected, no.
We learnt after Tuesday's game that Finn, cousin Dawson, had headed to the Northern Ireland international setup for a period of time. How big a moment is that for him, and indeed for you guys as coaches as well, because you've been a big part in his rise to where he is now?
Yeah, it's obviously as a club we were all delighted to hear about that Finn was going away basically on international duty. I think he's such a good character, and he's one that you can honestly say that he puts everything into being as best, the best Finn that he can be, which is so pleasing when you see people get rewarded for their hard work. He's been fantastic for us in the time that he's played. He had a dip, we pulled him out. He's not changed in terms of his attitude or application, which was a real tick for us, because we tell you what, he's mentally very strong. He wants to prove to people that he is good enough, and we're delighted to get him back. So it's been great for him.
Have you seen him since the news came through, and if so, what's he been like around the changing room?
No, he's not got back yet. So I think he's still over there now, or just arriving. So we're hoping to see the Finn back to himself tomorrow again. He's probably been worked hard away, but I'm sure he's impressed people.
And finally, and forgive me if this comes across as a little self-indulgent, but we have got the fans forum this evening, and it is an opportunity for you guys to, I suppose, connect with the fans once more. And I realise that's something that you've not really had the opportunity to be able to do since you've come into charge. I mean, how important is that for both you and Mark?
Yeah, I think if the fans can start to understand you as a person, and we're not people, we're just normal people. We try and do the best job that we can. I think the fans are great at this club, and we're just hoping that they can get back soon to cheer the guys on. And I think if they understand our stories, and that we're working as hard as we can to be successful, I think that's really important. I think we've spoke about it in the past around this is not going to be you go from 22nd in the league near the bottom to you're going to be champions. There's going to be real tough parts that we need to all stick together and get through, and we find ourselves in a mini dip at the minute, and but it's like any team throughout the football league. There's moments like this all the time, and you've probably seen that in the last 2 games that we've played. We've played teams who have not won in 7 or 8, so it's not unusual. But again, it's going to be great to speak to them and to hear their thoughts.
Well, go well Saturday, Conor. Cheers.
Cheers, Jimmy. Thank you.
Hi, Pete. You mentioned Finn again. How useful is it for you and Mark, as former youth team coaches, that you appreciate that young players will have a dip, and it's about when to drop them out on the side so that they don't lose their confidence, and when to support them through playing through it?
Yeah, it's I think throughout their development, because the pressure isn't as high as it is at first team level, they've potentially gone through it So maybe, you know, when Finn's been under 16 at this club, under 18 at this club, there's been times where he's not played, and maybe, you know, coming up to being a first team player now, he's already been put in those situations and sort of learn how to deal with and the emotional side of not being picked. But again, the biggest thing is that he's not sort of sulked or anything like that. He's just been working hard.
And you mentioned before about the difficulty of actually getting time with the players to work with them because of the scheduling and also because of the number of long journeys you've had to away games, which takes a day out of training, I suppose. How frustrating has that been, and have you had to change the way you communicate match details to players?
What it does, it means you can't really train much. It's basically a lot of analysis stuff and walkthroughs, which is tough because, you know, you want them to replicate the game when you're doing those things where people are sprinting and people are getting up to match speeds and match intensity, and at the moment we, you know, unfortunately can't do that because of the high risk of putting too much through the players at this moment in time. So you know, it is frustrating, but there's no excuses because we just need to find clever ways and solutions to win games.
As you say, you don't want to put too much through the players. Presumably the medical staff and the sports scientists have been even more important this season.
Yeah, vital, and I said it in the last preview, and it was around, you know, nobody's ever had a season like this, so people from all clubs are finding new things out and probably making mistakes. You know, clubs are going to make mistakes because of the high load and the stress that's on the body, but we've got to make sure that we listen to the specialists.
And on the medical side, we heard, I think this morning, that there might be a saliva test now for concussion. That's got to be good news with all the reports we've had of how that's affected players in the past. Yeah,
I wasn't aware. That's obviously fantastic news. You know, it's kind of a breakthrough moment, I guess, and you sort of knowing, you know, when player does go down with a head injury, and, you know, if there's that test that can, you know, determine whether they have concussion, then that's obviously going to save lives and going to help people in the future. So I think that's amazing.
Good. Thanks very much. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you very much, Pete.
Hi, Conor. It's just Nathan here from the team here. Obviously, like I said, one thing I'm sure, I mentioned it a bit on Monday. You're really proud of yourself on that defence now. Well, it's done since you two were in, plenty of clean sheets, but struggled a little bit, obviously, on Tuesday. Were you disappointed, particularly how much Richard had to get worked, or was it just a case of, as Anthony mentioned, you were going forward so much trying to get those goals that you were a bit open at the back towards the end? Because Richard stopped it getting a lot worse at the end, obviously, in the last half hour.
I think it was a game that, you know, there was numerous chances for both sides. I think we looked more vulnerable because obviously we were 1-0 down so early on, and, you know, we want to win games, and we're going to take the game to the opposition if we're 1-0 down. It would be wrong for us to stay in our shape and just, expect pressure from the opponents. So we wanted to go forward a little bit more, put them under pressure, and which does make you vulnerable at times, and that happened. And yes, Rich was, you know, worked a lot more than he has been in the past 3 months, a lot more. But I think that comes from again the attacking shape and potentially their threats, because they were, you know, Issa and Loft on the counter were quick and direct, and, you know, they caused us problems. We have to stop the counter better. We have to be looking at the play better to determine whether people look like they're going to lose possession and get themselves into better positions earlier on to stop the counter altogether. But we just want to get back to how we were.
No, definitely. And obviously there was quite a lot of long balls that didn't really go anywhere. When you got the ball out wide, particularly Ollie put in a couple of great crosses second half. Is that something to look at, making sure those crosses, as long balls, they've got more purpose, there's someone to aim for, rather than just balls being pumped up and sort of going out of play and being worried by the defenders' balls in that are going to have a real impact, scoring chances? Because some of all these crosses second half for Excellent nearly led to a couple of goals, isn't there?
Yeah, all his crosses are very good, and he's created some in the last game. I think he put 8 in, which shows you that he's getting himself into positions where, you know, he's either taking on his fullback or he's getting a yard to deliver. I think what you see from from us is we try and mix it up in terms of getting the players to make good decisions on when to play long and when to play short. And I think chasing the game, we felt that by crowding out certain areas and the players crowding out certain areas, we had more chance of winning the second balls to play from there. But I think we had more than enough chances and good chances to score goals on the night, which was obviously really frustrating.
No, definitely. And for you guys, if there is that frustration, like obviously it's been 5 games, is there a fear that the longer a winless run goes on, it's harder to get out of, or do you feel like one moment, one game could just sort of change everything and get you back sort of on 2 feet?
It's tough because you're trying to reset every week. You know, if you have a bad week in terms of not winning a game, you're looking to reset. You can't let it take over your life and make you panic and make bad decisions and to think and to be too emotional about it. You've got to keep focused and make sure that you keep understanding the process, that it's going to be we need to work hard to find what we need to work on and the areas to improve, and our job is to work even harder to make sure we're the best team we can be.
No, definitely. And obviously, you'll know you and Mark, you've been around the game long enough. You know that no one's exempt from criticism. But do you think fans have just got to sort of take stock and think that the process obviously worked up until Newport? It was 10 wins, 4 draws, 1 defeat under you two. Yeah, it's been a bad run, but do you think it's one of them where it's like, look, come on, we won 10 games out of sort of 14 or 15 just before this. Like, we can still do it. Don't lose faith in us almost.
It's hard to comment on anything that people say. All we can do is to make sure we prepare as well as we can for every game, and I think we've said it from the start. It's going to be tough, and it's not going to all be nice and fairy tale. It's going to be dips along the way. So we've just got to focus even more and keep working hard, and that's the simple answer to that.
No, that's fair enough. And obviously with Colchester on Saturday, normally sort of, I mentioned it to Anthony, Callum Harrop one of their biggest threats, but it's pretty much certain to miss the game because he's away with Guyana. And they've tried a few different things. Obviously, with the limited prep time, does that make it even more difficult knowing that you're not entirely sure what they're going to go with in terms of their setup? Yeah,
you go into it every game really where there's different players can play in different positions for the opposition, and we try and sort of see who we think is going to play, and things like this do maybe make us think differently.
Definitely. Just finally for me, obviously we mentioned it a bit. Obviously Carlisle got a bad run, sort of after playing you, so it's kind of struggling. Obviously Colchester are on a really bad run. They only once in 2021. Again, is that just keeping the players mindful that, again, look, just because they're in a bad run doesn't mean they're not a real threat. They've still got plenty to sort of do you with almost. It's
not something that we mention. In terms of they've not, we don't mention that they've not won for a certain amount of time. We go with our game plan. We go to win the game. We don't want to get ourselves in any sort of mind games or anything like that with the players. We go out there to perform, and the way it's been for the last few weeks, not been good enough. So we're looking to make sure that we put on a good performance and get a good result.
Brought to you by DIS, keeping companies connected with cloud-based solutions. Come on, City!